I've had the time now because I've been forced to stop, I've had the time to reflect a lot, kind of uncovering and picking apart these layers that I'd built on top of myself of who I thought I should be. All the things that I did were to progress in life in some way.
You find that you do that too with relationships in your life?
I find that the more I talk about it, the more present it's in my conscience, and then I start hyperfixating on things. Don't get me wrong, I still like nice clothes and I like nice stuff, but I used to think having designer stuff was such an important thing and like it made your social status so much higher. And now I'm just like,
oh, Alex, we are cut from the same cloth. That was me as well. Hello, and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Waldison. Happy Thanksgiving. I am recording this mid-Thanksgiving week. This week I released an episode about how to navigate the holidays with a chronic illness, and y'all, your responses have been amazing. I felt like everything I said in that episode were probably things that I'd also worried a little bit about. Am I alone in feeling this way? Am I alone in these experiences? And it has been an overwhelming reaction that is not the case. That the feelings and heaviness that can sometimes come with the holidays with chronic illness are very much real and very much shared between all of us. So thank you for sharing your stories and trusting me with your stories. Sharing your tips and tricks. I feel like I've learned some new tools to handle the holidays. And definitely some good laughter too. The dark humor. C'est la vie, baby. Before diving into my life updates, as I always do, quick little housekeeping. Please make sure to continue to follow, to subscribe, to like, comment, engage with the content. This podcast is growing faster and faster because you guys are doing that. And because you guys are engaging so much. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, because y'all are really what is the engine behind making this podcast what it is and this community what it is. On that note, you guys made me hit my 2 goals this year, which was to hit 10,000 followers on my Instagram and my TikTok. And I had a very lofty goal of doing it before Thanksgiving, but we did it. And that is because of y'all. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. This entire journey has been a dream. It's cathartic, to say the least, to be able to share my story and kind of digest my thoughts and feelings about being chronically ill with all of you guys. So thank you for giving me the opportunity and the platform to do that. But enough about that. Let's dive into what's been going on in my life. So last we chatted, I was gearing up for Thanksgiving. I think I was 1 day in on IVIG. How I was able to record an episode post IVIG is beyond me, but that is the theme of all last week. I had these random bursts of energy, no brain fog, and joyfulness. And I'm just going to say that those were God moments, because there's no justifiable reason why that should have happened. But the 5 days of infusions went really, really well. Y'all know that the last 2 times I did IVIG, I had god-awful side effects. Aseptic meningitis, thunderclap migraine. It was absolutely brutal, and I was so scared to try IVIG again. I think when you are starting a new treatment, you have this maybe placebo energy where you're going to be able to push through some of the side effects because you are excited that you're finally on a treatment that could help you. But y'all, those 2 first steps into IVIG, I was like, I don't know if it's worth it. Maybe I'll just take feeling like a bag of shit every day. But I advocated hard, and my neuroimmunologist, the one who's working with me to manage dysautonomia and some pains and whatnot, she just knew how to set me up for success for IVIG. And I think the biggest lesson there is if you are starting a medication and your provider does not know a lot about it, find someone that does. Because if you find a provider that is commonly prescribing a medication, they know the ins and outs. They know what to watch out for. They know how to circumvent the side effects and to make it easier on you. I think it's also really easy to forget that you don't have to live with the bad side effects. If you're feeling like shit because of a treatment, there are things that you can do. You just have to let somebody know. And that's something I didn't know at first. I was like, well, it's immunotherapy or it's chemotherapy. I'm supposed to feel like shit. And yes, granted, we're not going to feel our best, but you don't have to feel like absolute dog shit. There are things, there are tools, there are solutions. So what we did for my IVIG protocol was, instead of administering my rather lofty dose of IVIG over 2 or 3 days, which is kind of the norm, we spread it out over 5 days. We pre-medicate. I get IV fluids beforehand. There's an option for IV fluids after if I need it. There are extra meds available should I need them during my infusions. And the other critical thing was I got IVIG administered at an infusion clinic that I double-checked administered IVIG often. Why I did that was super important. And it's because the nurses who are giving you this med, if they know what the medication is like, the side effects that we're trying to protect against, how bad they can really be, they will fight tooth and nail to make sure that you are comfortable and that you are avoiding as many of those side effects as possible. And that was like the big difference. So obviously I got IVIG in the hospital with an internal medicine team that probably had never prescribed IVIG, or if they had, it was like they could count on one hand the number of times they'd done it. That meant that there were side effects they didn't even know to look out for, or that like the actual proper protocol of how to run it. I think I shared, but my first time doing IVIG, it was run at the max rate, which is 400 units per hour. That is, I've now learned, very dangerous, and is why I developed aseptic meningitis. Most people max out at 100 units per hour, and that's like aggressive. I had no idea. The nurse administering it had no idea. It just was a shit show. Now, going to the infusion center I go to, when I told them that story, they were like aghast that had even happened. They're like, that's dangerous. So glad that you're getting it done here. We will never let that happen to you. And they just like clearly not only had my best interests at heart, but like had spent time understanding what the medications were like and what the patient experience was like. And I think that's really, really important. So anyway, I'm digressing. So I got IVIG done. First 2-3 days, I would say I was pretty tired. Granted, I was getting a shit ton of IV Benadryl, so that, didn't help anything. And I was going in at 9 a.m. usually, or 8 a.m. to start infusions. That meant I was wrapping up around like 1 to 3 p.m. And then I had to have the rest of the day in like that weird Benadryl haze where I just felt kind of foggy and disoriented and not myself and like bleh. And stupidly, I didn't nap the entire week. I don't know why, but I like was being a little toddler and cantankerous against napping for some reason. And that wasn't great for anybody really, but it made me just feel kind of weird. So I am going to be doing my infusions now in the afternoons, starting it as late as possible so I can finish around like 8 p.m. and then go straight home, eat dinner, and go to sleep. Or like even eat dinner at the infusion center so I can get home and just go straight to bed. I did that on Friday night last week, which was my last day of IVIG. Started at 2:30, finished at 8 p.m., went home, ate, slept, and it was a much better experience. So I'm learning all of my lessons and making note of things. Last weekend, this is the other little God energy moment. One of my best friends got married, and thankfully it was in Austin, so it was local, which made it much easier on Coops and I to be able to go. I had no right having the energy that I did, but I was able to pull it together, and we were able to go to the wedding for 3 hours. That morning, I also interviewed the guest for today's episode. So thank you, Lord, for that energy, because Saturday was a dream day. Woke up, interviewed this guest, went outside on a little walk, and then went to a wedding. And we got home and rested and slept, and it was perfect. And then Sunday, had a resting day, had some emotional tribulations, which were just absolutely brutal. You know how when you're autoimmune and you have like friction in a relationship, it just tends to like spur up physical symptoms? Well, that was my Sunday, and I was already so drained. from the prior week of travel and then surgery and then a full week of infusions and then pushing through to a wedding. I was dead. I had no spoons left, and that wasn't great. And so by the end of Sunday, I was like, I'm done. This was a shit show of the last 2 weeks. Some high highs, some low lows, but I am done. And Monday I woke up and I've just been kind of recovering since then, but it's the holiday season. So we are pushing through because my in-laws got in Monday night and we went straight into hosting mode. Thankfully, I've been able to like carve out a lot of time for getting my own stuff done, taking care of my spoons, stuff like that. I did try to squeeze in all of my catch-up work from the last 2 weeks into Monday and Tuesday, which was also dumb. Lots of learnings over the last 3 weeks. Lots of learnings. But now we're here, and it's Wednesday, and tomorrow is my favorite day of the entire year, which is Thanksgiving. I love the food. I love the things that are on TV. I love that the air is usually crisp. I love the energy when you wake up in the morning and you turn on the Macy's Day Parade and the house smells warm and like stuffing. It's my Super Bowl of all holidays, I would say. I'm a big Thanksgiving girl. Don't like turkey, actually. Don't usually eat the turkey at all, but I eat everything else. I'm a big sides girl. So like stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cornbread. I guess what I'm saying is like anything yellow or white I eat on my plate, and that is my Midwest really shining through. Girl of simple pleasures. This week, we made an itinerary, which has been really helpful on navigating like, okay, here's when I'm going to show up, here's when I'm going to rest, and it allows me to have some like predictability, and also allows everyone that we're with to have some predictability on like expectation management for me being around or being present or whatnot. So that's been really helpful. Other than that, I've thrown my routine right out the window. Been trying to do my breath work. We're still doing our 21-day challenge. I will say the last 3 days I've not been super consistent, so I need to get back on the horse and like slap my wrist. I'm supposed to be leading that charge and I am not. So might need one of you guys to comment in that little group chat and say, Alex, get your shit together if I don't comment in a day. We're charging towards the end of the year, and with that in mind, some holiday shopping. I've been releasing my gift guides on social media for your chronic illness girly who wants wellness tech, wants some clean beauty, needs to elevate their duvet day setup, loves the cozy clothes OOTDs. You get the gist of it. I've been dropping links, some discount codes, all the things for you guys, which brings me to my wellness picks of this week. I'm super excited about this. I just started partnering with Sensate. Sensate is a sensory device that targets your vagus nerve and helps tone it. And for those of you that don't know what the fuck a vagus nerve is, I'm not going to explain it very well, so you can Google. But basically, your vagus nerve is responsible for, I guess, like, your vagus nerve is the captain of your parasympathetic nervous system. So think rest and digest, breathing, a normal heart rate, digestion, sleeping, all of the things that are the foundation for like health that you just don't think about that happen naturally. So if you can tone your vagus nerve, that's supposed to lower your stress in your body and help with better digestion and also better sleep, both falling asleep faster and then deeper sleep and staying asleep longer. They're sending me my Sensate device this week. I'm so excited. I'll be showing you guys on socials how I use it, my thoughts on it, my experience, and how it's impacting my anxiety. But if you guys are interested, you can use your HSA or FSA dollars. You can use code CallingInSick for 10% off the device. I think they're also running a 20% off sale right now for Cyber Monday, Black Friday, holiday sale. So stack those codes. And let me know if you've used it before too. I'm super curious. I've been keeping an eye on that kind of like vagus nerve tech market for the last year, and it seems like Sensate has percolated to be like the clear market winner. So I'm excited to give it a try. My second wellness pick of the week is a clean beauty pick. I love Thrive Cosmetics for so many reasons. One, they're non-toxic and clean. Two, they are cause-oriented, so they do so much work on giving back to the community. They also dedicate each and every single one of their makeup products to a individual who's like had a challenge they've overcome. So last summer, they dedicated one of their blushes, and it's called the Alexandra. You can still find it on their site, for my journey. And so obviously I love them forever. But the product I am telling you guys about today is their Liquid Lash Extension Mascara. I used to be a girly that got lash extensions every 2 weeks. That was expensive. It was bad for my lashes and toxic. So not great. But boy, did my lashes look so fucking good. And I love lashes. Just, it's the frame for your eyeballs. Literally art. So you want to have a nice frame for those bad boys. Thrive is sending me a code for you guys. I will be linking it on my socials so that you can shop it as well. But it is an awesome mascara. It's super easy to come off. I just use my little makeup wipe, or I use my Osea body oil on a little washcloth and rub it off. It comes off super easy. You can also like roll it off your lash, which is pretty fun to do. I don't know if it's super good for your lashes, but I quite enjoy doing it, especially when I'm anxious and just have a little anxiety tick. Doesn't sting your eyes, doesn't burn, which is huge because my eyes are super sensitive with lupus. I get dry eyes and have to get that amniotic lens put in like once or twice a year. No issues with that, so that's awesome. Okay, and without further ado, I cannot wait to tell you guys about the guest for today's episode. This was a dream come true. And my guest for this week is Alex Gray. You might recognize her from the Traders UK, where she competed, she crushed. She's a television presenter and live TV host. She has won a BAFTA award for her performance in Traders itself, which is amazing. But the reason she's on my show is because she is a chronic illness girly, and she uses her platform to talk about the journey. And I was so drawn to her because for a while she didn't have a diagnosis. So she was living in the public eye, not feeling well, having to explain to people, I can't do this, I don't feel good, XYZ, but she didn't have a label to use to describe why she couldn't. And I thought to myself, wow, that's really challenging. I've experienced that, but can you imagine experiencing that in the public eye? That seemed incredibly overwhelming to me, but she did it with such grace and kindness and compassion for herself. It's just amazing to like watch her content. So thankfully she has been given a diagnosis since her initial symptoms. I'll let her dive into if she's satisfied with that or not later on in the episode. But I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. We talk about her journey with chronic illness and how that's impacted her identity and also her relationships, and then how obviously she's navigated all of that. So give her a follow and a look on socials at Alex O. Gray, Gray, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Mwah! Okay, and today I have the amazing Alex Gray with me. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm so excited, and thank you also for the amazing advocacy work that you do for our community.
Yeah, I try. I feel like I haven't done anything recently, and I'm sure anyone who has like chronic fatigue and whatever knows the struggle to motivate yourself to be productive on top of everything else in life. Yeah. So I've been slacking, and I'll admit to that. But I've tried.
No. No, you have not. Oh my God. This is like the type A personality of autoimmunity, where we always feel like we're not doing quite enough, but from the outside looking in, you are doing an amazing job. I love how you are able to vocalize the experience of being chronically ill and still bring humor and lightness to it, and just make it digestible for like anybody.
Thank you.
So I was thinking to dive on in. Could you give us a little bit of your background on who you are, where you grew up, and kind of who you were pre getting sick?
God, I feel like I've had a personality transplant, to be honest. I grew up, yeah, right. I grew up in a little sleepy county called Suffolk, which is in the east of England. I went to school in Cambridge, and I was pretty academically driven at school. I I've always been very competitive, and I've always had a drive to succeed. And so I worked my arse off at school, then was kind of on track for Oxbridge, didn't get in, which I'm grateful for because I think I would have dropped out. Went to a university called UCL in London when I was 18, and I really was so miserable at uni. And I think because I went to boarding school, I had never learned how to process emotion. And this is something really interesting that I've been learning as I've gotten older, and I've done some reading on it. And there's a thing called boarding school syndrome. And it's fascinating. Yeah, psychologically, it's really fascinating. And essentially, I mean, I was super young. I was 11 years old when I went to boarding school. And you weren't allowed to be sad. You weren't allowed to be homesick. You learned from a very young age to be independent and to just squash any kind of inhibiting emotions, I guess is quite a good way to describe it. Because no one gave you sympathy. No one felt sorry for the little rich kid who went to boarding school. You know what I mean? So that's part of the boarding school syndrome psychological concept. So I was quite hard. I was pretty militant. I was. It took a lot for me to cry. I wouldn't say I was like. I wasn't overly emotional, but at the same time, I was. Like, it didn't take a lot. It would just take me one sad song and I would start crying, and then I would suppress it, and I'd be like mortified that I was even crying. And no one could ever see it, you know? And so at uni,
put it away, pack it into a box.
Put it away, pack it away. So at uni, I really didn't have a good time because of this. I need to succeed. I need to get a first. I want to, do the best that I can. Hyperdrive. And I was feeling all these things, but that I didn't know that I was feeling, and it was coming out in my eating, and it was coming out in my exercising. And I punished myself to the nth degree. Like I'd say I was more orthorexic than anorexic, but I definitely was anorexic. It kind of started off with anorexia at the age of 17, and then kind of progressed into this hyper health centric attitude where I only eat certain amount of calories a day, and it had to be, high in fiber and high in protein. And if I ate something bad, then I had to counteract that by exercising for the equivalent. It was just ridiculous. And I was working out like 2 hours a day. I didn't drink.
Do you feel like that was in response to like you're trying to put your emotions down? Like, okay, if I can control this part of my life, then that's okay. That this isn't something that I'm super comfortable with.
I still don't fully understand it, if I'm honest. And I know that people, like psychologists say that those kind of behavioral patterns it's to do with control. And I still haven't fully unpacked it. And maybe I should kind of sit down and work through it, but I haven't yet. But it definitely was an interesting.
I don't know if we have to unpack everything.
Maybe not.
Honestly,
maybe I'll just never get it. But it was a key part,
and that's okay.
Yeah, but it was a key part in my story because I think I put my body through so much hell, and I just kind of hit a wall. And I think that was kind of like the starting point for my decline in health. Going from this person, so talking about who I was previously, I was this very driven, I was like the Duracell energy bunny. Honestly, I didn't need to sleep. I didn't drink coffee. I was just bouncing off walls. People would come up to me in the gym and they'd say, hey, like, what do you want? I need some of this. And I'd be like, literally nothing. I'm just psychotic. This is just me. And I'd say I still have that drive, and I'd say I'd still have that competitive nature, but I can't act on it anymore. And so there's this real horrible conflict now that and I'm sure you maybe have experienced the same, because I know that you're very successful and are very successful. And you have this conflict where you have all these dreams and ambitions, and you see people achieving what you know that you could have achieved or can achieve potentially at some point, but you can't quite do it because you're stuck. Like every time you get up, you're knocked back down again. But anyway, so that's kind of a little brief background, I guess, on me as an individual.
I feel like that story is it's a through line that I hear time and time again interviewing people with chronic illnesses. It's these hyper active, incredibly driven individuals that sacrifice their sense of self almost, at least I did, in order to accomplish whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that came at a cost, unfortunately, and it had repercussions that were debilitating. Completely debilitating. And you're hitting the nail on the head that, like, when you come from that as your personality and then all of a sudden are handcuffed by these symptoms that drag you down, you get kind of lost on, like, who are you?
Yes.
What are you supposed to do now? And it's really challenging. So when did you first start having symptoms that you were like, what the hell is going on?
So I was 23 and I just left uni, and I did a brief stint in an office job for about 7 months, and within that time I developed bulimia. And I was in massive denial that it was doing anything bad to my body and to my health, and I kind of thought that I'd cracked the code, like I'd found a cheat code, you know, like I could eat whatever I wanted and still stay skinny or whatever. And it was just ridiculous looking back. But I think I was so unhappy within that job. And there was a lot of family stuff going on at that time, like really shitty, miserable stuff. And so like I said, I still hadn't learned to process emotions. So I was just channeling it in a way that I understood.
Sure.
Anyway, I left that job. I started traveling a lot. I started presenting and picking up work, and I was traveling a lot, like just back to back, kind of flying all over the place, which is amazing. But it came at a bit of a cost because my body just started to just shut down, and I started to get really tired. I'd never experienced tiredness like it. And me being me, I just thought, it's just the jet lag, or maybe I'm just overworking, or, there was always
there's an excuse for everything.
Yes, I was trying to rationalize what was going on. So at no point did I ever think there was actually something wrong with me. So it was around that time. That was 2018, 19. And I definitely...
We got sick around the same time.
Oh, really? How interesting.
Yeah.
Weird.
2018, 2019. And mine was right at the end of my first year of investment banking, where I'd been pushing myself way, way, way too hard, pulling way too many late nights, and similarly kept thinking, I'm tired because I'm tired because, and it never was, is there something wrong that's going on?
And I bet you never listened to it.
It's hard to face that music.
Yeah, I never listened to it. I would power through it. I didn't
Always.
care. Yeah, I remember walking down the street and my eyes would be rolling back in my head and I'd feel like I was going to pass out, but I kept going because I couldn't accept that I had to stop. I couldn't stop.
No, good Lord, no. Good Lord, no. And in investment banking, I was like, okay, well, I'll take an Adderall. I'll have an espresso shot. I'll medicate whatever I need to be able to keep going. And that obviously was not the right solution either.
Yeah, for me, it was black coffee as well.
Yep. Okay, so you start getting fatigued, and then when did you have the aha moment of, I should maybe go see a doctor?
So it started with fatigue, and like I said, I just kept pushing through it. Even pushing through it even when I really, really shouldn't have. Like I said, walking down the street, eyes rolling back in my head, like really dizzy, like feeling like I was going to pass out. Pushing through in the gym, just ridiculous. So it kind of progressed from the fatigue. The fatigue carried on, and then I started to get like this rash on my neck, this very little tiny rash just here. And I've had eczema my whole life, so I just thought, I've just got a little bit of eczema on my neck. And I put the usual creams on it, and it didn't go away, and it just kept spreading. Over a few weeks, it just spread up my neck and onto my face. And during that time, I started getting really bad pain in my body. Not like workout pain. I know what workout pain was, and I used to love that pain. But this was, I feel like I've been hit by a truck.
Musculoskeletal pain.
Yeah, and I started to get really bad digestive problems, shall we say, to keep it not too grotesque. And that's when something...
You're more than welcome to share as much as you want on this podcast. It is
I got the shits real bad.
Real bad, honey. It wreaks havoc on every single aspect of our lives. It strips you away of your femininity and feeling
everything. It was horrible. And the bloating. I'd never been bloated
Awfully.
like that in my life. It was genuinely, like, I have pictures, but I'm naked in them, so I would never share them. But I look like
Really good nudes.
yeah, really good news. I look like I'm 6 months pregnant. It was so painful and just uncomfortable, and I felt so insecure about it. And so I was wearing
how can you
baggy
not?
clothes. Yeah. So I would go out wearing baggy clothes and like elasticated band trousers, and like I just really didn't understand what was going on. I felt like a stranger in my own body.
Were you talking to like any of your friends and family about this at this time, or did you feel like, no, I should just handle this on my own because of kind of like the boarding school isms that you grew up with?
The latter. Like, I didn't really confide in anyone. I think I would say, oh, I'm tired, and I started cancelling on people. And I never was the type of person to cancel. Like, I was very social. I was out all the time and had a massive group of friends, and, you know, like, even if I'd worked all day, I would still go out and do something and stay out till like 3 a.m, right?
Yeah.
and I just couldn't. I physically couldn't do it, so I had to cancel a lot. And
how did those groups respond to that? Because so at this point you're like symptoms and you're canceling, but you don't know what's going on. It's so hard to find the words to describe that to people then, and they tend to misunderstand. I
think I still just thought that maybe I was getting older and like I was slowing down. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't.
Faster than everyone else.
Yeah, right. Like, I was so in a fog with everything.
Yeah.
I had no clarity on what was going on, and so I think the first time I went to the doctor about it was when the rash got really bad. And that was in 2019, was the first time I went to the doctor about it all. And she said, I literally took one glance at me. She said, oh, classic case of ringworm. And I was like, no, I don't think it is, because I've got XYZ symptoms. Yeah. And then she just dismissed it. She was like, no, it's ringworm, it's ringworm. Like, I can see the rings on your rash, that's ringworm. And I felt so frustrated and shut down, and I was so tired and in a brain fog and like just exhausted. I didn't have the fight in me to kind of counteract what she said, so I was just like, okay, just accepted what the professional told me. And
and when you're at that age too, and you're having symptoms, and you're growing up in a society where doctors they have the right answer, you never understand that there's doctors that just might not know what's wrong with you, and you don't know to accept that or to fight against it. Yeah. Similarly, I had my first time going in, because of the symptoms I had like psoriasis on my hands and my feet, and the doctor said, "Oh, you have syphilis," and I was like, "What the? Oh my god! There's no way that I have that."
Mortifying.
One thing of testing done. Mortifying. Yes. Like, I can't tell my parents this, obviously. One round of testing, and she's like, "Oh, it's not that. We'll continue looking." But like, that is point in case what happens. You go in and you get told something and you don't know to question it.
Yeah. And where I was living in East London, and at my doctor's, every time I would go in, I was given a different doctor. I mean, first of all, it was impossible to get an appointment, so that was the hard part.
Oh
initially.
My gosh! Will you walk us through a little bit about like what's the process like in the UK to get seen? Because I don't know about this at all, actually.
So I think it massively depends on where you live in the UK, because every council is different. But so I've had experience in quite a few places, because I've really tried to find someone who can help me. But in London, especially in East London where I was, it was just terrible. So this is, I don't know if it's still like this, but this is what it was like back then. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, if you wanted to get an appointment, you had to ring up at 8 o'clock on the dot, and you had to hope that you got one, because there would be tens or if not hundreds of other people trying to do the same thing to get an appointment. Okay, they answer and they're really rude, and you're on the phone, you're like,
always
and they'd slot you in whenever was available, and if you didn't do that, then you'd have to go online, and the first available appointment wouldn't be until like a month or 2 months away. So you'd call up at 8, you'd get slotted in, and then you're just given a random doctor. Like, this person doesn't know who you are. They don't, from my experience, they never bothered to read medical history or anything. And like, I would talk to them and tell them and express my frustrations and my symptoms and my struggles. And I was always just met with, oh, it's anxiety, or, oh, you're just overworking yourself, or clearly because you're traveling so much, this is what's happening, or blah, blah, blah. Like, you're always dismissed, and you have to really fight to get like a full blood test. Because they just want to give you like one or two things. Or like, oh, we'll just measure for iron levels. Or we'll just measure for your B12 levels. And you're like, no, I want you to measure every fucking thing. And you have to really fight for that.
Yes, give me every test.
Yeah, and even then they still don't want to do it. Because it's NHS and like, they don't want to overburden. And if they don't think there's anything seriously wrong with you, then they're not going to bother wasting their time. But I will say, I will give credit where credit's due. They did think that I had cancer because I had really bad night sweats. Like when I have flare-ups, I get really, really bad night sweats. It's gross, I know, but it's just it
awful.
Sucks. I hate it, especially when I have fake tan. Like my sheets go orange.
Yes, yes. And you have to have like a second set of PJs next to your bed so you can just change, wring them out, get back on in.
Yeah,
or just sleep nude because it's so awful.
Yeah. So when I said, I didn't think much of that symptom. I just thought, oh, it is what it is. And when I said that, the doctor, like I could see something change in their face. They're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to give you these tests because we think that this could be something more serious. So they did think I had some kind of rare type of blood or bone cancer. I don't know. I can't remember now. Ugh. So I will like that. Then I got fast tracked. And I got a bone biopsy. They gave me an MRI scan, and they gave me one other scan. I can't remember what it was. So then they took it really seriously. But with in terms of just getting like the autoimmune kind of general fatigue, fibromyalgia, arthritis stuff checked, they're just not bothered about it. And so that was really tough. And I ended up getting testing fatigue because you just go... You'd be waiting for ages for the test, and then you'd be waiting ages for the answers, and then the answers would come back negative, and then you'd have to go back and then do it. And it was so exhausting and so frustrating. I just stopped because I felt like I was banging my head against a wall.
And it gets depressing where you're sitting there going, I'm wishing for a test to be positive, which feels bizarre.
Yeah.
And praying for it to be positive because you want an answer so bad.
Yeah, it got so bad for me, and I know we spoke about this before. It got so bad for me, and I hate saying this out loud, but it is genuinely psychologically where I was at that point. Like when they said that I might have that rare form of cancer, and I went for the test, a part of me just hoped it came back positive, so that I just had the answer. And it's horrible to say that. Yeah, and because I just knew that there would be the treatment for me, and hopefully it would have been successful, but there would have been some action, there would have been some answers, there would have been some clarity, there would have been some kind of like, okay, now I can stop Googling for hours on end and reading research papers and trying to figure out myself what's going on, and I can just be like, this is what I have, these are the next steps, hopefully this is a path to recovery now. It was a pretty dark time.
It is, but I don't think you're alone in that at all. I mean, I've definitely been in that position as well, where I've prayed for God knows the worst diseases in the world just to have an answer. Yeah. But I think if we take a step back, like then that is a statement on the medical world right now, that there's people in our community that are mistreated, misdiagnosed, misunderstood for so long that they're praying for cancer or praying for something to be given to them. That to me is a sign that like, okay, we've got to do some massive work, because nobody should be praying for that. No, but there's something that's going on, and that's something that's wrong that's causing that to happen.
I think because people don't understand it, and people who don't have it, people don't understand it, and so therefore they don't realize how bad it is. They don't realize how hard it is. Yeah. They don't realize how debilitating and life-changing it is, and so people don't necessarily take it that seriously, especially because you can't see it. Agreed. Right? You can't see tiredness. You can't see stiffness and pain in your body. You can't see the brain fog. You can't see like the digestive problems. Well, maybe you can sometimes, but and so because it's only the person who's experiencing it who can fully comprehend how difficult it is, and so I guess it's just not taken as seriously as it should be. And also I think because it's
100%.
Yeah, because it's so grey. The area is so grey and requires so much testing from all different angles. It's such a faff, like it's such a pain in the arse. Like it's not a simple diagnosis, and so it takes a lot of resources and time and energy and I guess especially
resilience.
and resilience. But I guess for something like the NHS, it's a hard, they kind of don't want to have to go down the rabbit hole of exhausting all options because of the money and resources and time it takes. So I empathize with the system.
Makes sense.
But I went private as well, and that was just as bad. So
I was going to ask, is there like an option to, if like, are there specialists, or can you go find an actual rheumatologist in London and go through that path, or does that not exist?
Yeah, I mean, I tried at the very beginning. I was having no luck with my East London doctors, so I went private, and I saw some specialists, and my hair was falling out. Like I'd lost like half of my head of hair. Like it wasn't it wasn't like it's like patches. It was more just the general thickness.
Shedding.
Like shedding. Like I would just go like this, and the whole clump would fall out, and clumps would come out in the shower. Yeah, it's really horrible.
It's deeply saddening. Saddening.
And so I was upset by that, obviously. And anyway, so I went, saw a specialist, explained my symptoms and everything. Again, I got issued more tests, and she didn't do everything. She just did like a basic blood test, which I could have got on the NHS. Came back with similar results as I had before. And she was like, oh, your iron levels are low. Oh, that'll explain why your hair is falling out. Oh, it's not easy. And then I remember she literally prescribed me what had already been prescribed by the NHS. And she wrote on her Hermes notepad, ferrous sulfate, and then charged me 250 quid for it. And I was like, brilliant. And this is such a waste of money.
That's awful.
Yeah, so I kind of had no luck with any of that. And maybe I should have tried harder and researched better specialists, but
don't blame yourself for that. It's not you, it's the system.
It's a minefield.
It is a minefield. One thing that I think about all the time too is when there's people like you and I that walk into a doctor's office. We're young, we put our makeup on, we get dressed up, we look cute. It's very hard to be taken seriously that we don't feel well. And beyond that, because these diseases are chronic, and because we are type A individuals that want to keep going and keep pushing on and keep pushing through, it doesn't matter that we feel like we have the flu every day. We're going to keep getting up and going. And that makes it 10 times harder than for everyone around us to, I think, digest and understand how awful we are feeling, because they're seeing us still live somewhat of a normal semblance of a life.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of a clusterfuck.
Yeah, but I think well, the way I see it, it's like what's the other choice? What's the other option? I just kind of lie in bed all day and just let myself waste away, and like let life just slip away in front of me. That's not an option in my eyes. So I'd rather do the battle and do the fight. But don't get me wrong, like I have burnout. I have burnout right now. I feel exhausted. I feel like every day I have to fight, and I get worried because I think, how much longer can I keep fighting? Like, how much longer can I keep...
Will this get...
Will it get worse? Well, that's it. And like yesterday, I just had like all this pain down my neck, and I had like pains in my arms. Like I just felt so weak. And all I could do was lie down and be in bed. And I was just like, this is just shit.
It is shit.
I had plans to do stuff, and I couldn't do anything. And I just like doom scrolled on my phone, which is the worst thing you could do. It made me feel even 10 times worse.
Do you play the mental games when you get into bed too, where you're like, I'm not being productive, like this is a waste of a day, and then like also deny yourself the ability to actually rest?
yeah, all the time. Yeah, it's really hard to shut off.
It's really hard to shut off. So, okay, so let's go. You go back through these different doctors, different hoops, different testing getting done. Your symptoms, I'm assuming, are probably getting worse by the month. When do you start getting answers and start having hope that, like, okay, maybe there's a direction we can go?
So I did a lot of testing in a hospital outside of London, and that was the hospital that I got referred to that one because that's when they thought I had cancer. And yeah, and that's when I started feeling like we were making a breakthrough. And because I remember she did a scan on my hands, and it came back with like the fluid around the joints, you know, where you get like the arthritis fluid. Yeah. So I said, oh, okay, well, like finally, at least I have an answer onto why my hands are so stiff and like why I can't text sometimes. I have to text like this. So I was like, okay, well, at least that's something. And And then it kind of just stopped there, and I got pulled into a doctor's office, and he was like, look, we're really sorry, but we've kind of exhausted our options with testing. We can see, and actually it was quite validating, because he's like, look, we can see you're struggling, and we can see you're clearly, this is not something that's fabricated, like you've got this crazy rash, you've got all these other symptoms, but we just can't give you an answer. But we can say you most likely have a form of celiac disease, or because I'd gathered as well at that time that foods were triggering my reactions, and like if I ate gluten or dairy, my rash would get worse and I would feel more tired and everything. So that I'd kind of started to understand. And then I was just left with that, and he was just like, that's all we can really do for you. So I was just told to go and get on with it. And then he said, oh, actually that was fine. Then he said, but we're gonna prescribe you some steroids. I can't remember which ones they were now.
Prednisone, probably.
I can't remember what it was called. He said, we're gonna give you these. And I said, look, I really don't want to take them. I said, he said, because he said one thing that like made me think, oh, fuck that. He goes, we're gonna give you these.
Yeah.
But one of the side effects is it can cause blindness. So you're going to have to come back twice a year to have your eyes tested, just to make sure that your eyesight is still okay. And I said, well,
oh, good Lord.
Thanks, but no thanks. I think I'll try and manage this by myself. And then when it gets really bad, then I guess I'll have no other option. And he literally kind of laughed and was like, well, good luck. We'll probably see you in the next 3 months.
See you soon.
Yeah, basically. And then I never went back, and I still haven't taken any medication.
Wow.
Rightly
Alex,
or wrongly.
that's actually amazing.
I don't know, because I feel like things have got worse. Like my hands, for example, have definitely gotten worse. And maybe if I had taken something to have halted the advancement of arthritis.
Sure.
I don't, you just don't know. It's really hard to.
You don't know.
But my gut said,
and there's
don't
so
do
many.
It.
Well, that's what you have to listen to, I think.
Yeah.
There's so much noise. In the U.S., there's a lot of noise between, like, functional medicine, which is, unfortunately, been very polarized to be, like, anti-Western medicine, and then Western medicine. And I think you just have to listen to your gut, because your gut is going to tell you, like, what your body really needs at that time, I think. And when you get to the point where shit's hitting the fan, you know, organs are getting involved, or you can't have any semblance of a normal life anymore, that's when Western medicine has a right place and time. But if there are symptoms that you're noticing you can manage by lifestyle adjustments or diet adjustments, like, why not try that first?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I felt at the time. I just thought, oh, maybe I can cure this with my gluten and dairy-free diet.
Yeah, and positive thinking.
So yeah, that was all my experience. And then I did a brief stint of testing last year, and then I got fatigued so quickly with it, I just gave up, because bless him, he was a really nice doctor, actually. Like, I know I do slate doctors a lot just because I've had some really bad experiences, but I have also met some really lovely ones who have genuinely tried and have been really understanding, and he was one of them. But I think I just didn't persevere with it. Oh yeah, I got diagnosed with fatty liver syndrome. Non-alcoholic fatty liver syndrome. Yeah. And then
very common in the autoimmune world.
Is
very
it?
Common.
So yeah, and the way I got diagnosed, I just got sent a text message saying, "Oh, you have this," and I got sent a link to an NHS website explaining what it is, and then that was it. And then I was never seen again, and I was just like, I literally, I know it's bad. I should have booked an appointment, but I was like, I can't be bothered. Like, I can't. It is what it is.
It's not, honestly, Alex. It's not bad. There's been, I think, in everyone's journey, there's times where you get so exhausted with your symptoms and managing it, and then, like, your life outside of being sick, it just gets to be too much. You have to give your body the rest. Yeah. There's been times where I've, like, and I have a degenerative type of vasculitis. There's been times where I've said, I'm done with medicine, and flushed all of my pills down the toilet.
Wow.
Like, that's definitely dangerous for my body. But sometimes I think it's okay to just do those things because it's cathartic, and it's necessary for our bodies to be able to continue going on, to just be able to take a pause and say, fuck this for right now. Yeah. And that's okay.
And I also find that I don't like focusing on it. I don't like fixating on it. I feel like it makes it worse.
Yeah.
So when I got
Yeah.
sent that text message, I actually felt okay at that moment in time, and I was like, oh, whatever. And I googled it a bit, obviously. Like, don't don't get me wrong. Like, I am
Who
number
can't?
one. I am number one researcher, and I kind of determined it as it's like fine. It is whatever. So I was just like, you know what? I feel okay at the moment. I'm not gonna like pursue this right now because I was in a good headspace, and I didn't want to rock that, because I don't know about you, but I feel like my headspace is, I'm up and down very quickly.
Same, and it's all so
easily
interconnected. 100%, 100%, and that mind-body connection is so real. Like stress, especially emotional stress for me. I don't know if that's this way for you too, but emotional stress will cause very painful physical flare-ups for me.
Yeah. I'm the same, 100%.
It's so unfair.
Too sensitive.
We're just too sensitive. Is this what hysteria was in like the 1800s?
Yeah, we would have had a lobotomy by now.
Please sign me up. Oh my goodness. Okay, so where do you feel like you are right now with being chronically ill and having somewhat of a diagnosis, but also somewhat not a satisfying diagnosis? How do you feel about it?
I don't know if it's because we're heading into winter here in the UK, and it's getting very dark and it's grey and it's raining a lot, but I'm always very transparent. Like, I don't have anything to hide. I'll be honest and say I've been struggling mentally with everything. Do you feel a lot of sadness and frustration and loss? I feel like I've lost a lot of who I was and who I really enjoyed being. And I feel exhausted, not just like physically, but mentally. I feel exhausted, like I alluded to earlier, about constantly fighting, constantly putting on a brave face, constantly smiling through it, constantly just really, like, everything just feels like an uphill battle. And like, I've had the demons in my head kind of playing, being like, how much longer can you do this for? And then kind of playing out this life where I just give up and I'm in bed, and then I kind of play out that scenario where I kind of just become a bit useless, and then I play out the other scenario.
Slave to the disease.
Yeah, essentially. And then I play out the other scenario where I keep fighting and I keep trying to achieve and succeed and blah blah blah. And both options to me just seem difficult in their own ways. Yeah. And so I guess I just feel a bit paralyzed in life, because I feel as if this thing that I deal with has knocked a lot of my self-confidence. And with what I do for work, you have to be very confident. And I have to kind of like, I found myself having to like mentally jig myself to feel and be confident before a job or before any type of even social interactions now. Whereas before I never once thought about it. Like, I just went out and did and performed and chatted with people with ease. And that's really bizarre for me. And I'm like, God, I hope this doesn't get worse. So yeah, I've just been in a bit of a sticky place the last, I say, several weeks, or maybe even months.
Those troughs are hard. I'm right there with you. I feel like I'm just now getting out of a trough, but the last few months was like crippling depression.
Yeah.
Where I just like lost hope on what this disease had done to my life and what direction life was going similarly. And I think when you, like, especially around the holidays, like, it's a time when you reflect a lot, or a lot of us find ourselves reflecting a lot. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, man, even a year ago was so different. Or like, at this age, at 30, I thought my life would look like ABC, and this is what it looks like. It can be, I don't know, it just like really strips you of who you are and who you want to be, and finding, I don't know, peace within that is incredibly challenging.
It is. And I find that social media makes it worse. I actually, when I'm not on socials, like, I haven't really been active on social media for a little while, because I go in these dips. Like, when I'm in these dips, these troughs, like you said, I don't feel like posting anything. I don't feel like giving out to the world. I don't feel like it. I just want to keep everything and be like all cozy in my own little bubble and just kind of get on with it mentally. Yeah. But I find that when I doom scroll, which I do have to stop myself from doing, it makes everything worse, because as the famous saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. And you end up seeing people doing XYZ or ABC, and you want to be doing XYZ or ABC, and you want to be going out and with your friends and doing that, or you want to be going and achieving that in your career, or you want to be going to the gym and doing that and making your body look a certain way. But when you're kind of just stuck and like kind of glued to your bed, there's not much that can be done about any of that. But actually I find that when I remove that world, that online world where everyone's posting their highlights and posting all the great things about their lives, when I don't look at any of that, I actually feel quite content. I know, despite what I was saying about how kind of it feels like a loss and I feel frustrated, and I still feel those things, but it doesn't feel as bad, because I think I have accepted, I think I have been quite good at just accepting that this is what it is, and I just have to deal with it. And I manage it in my own little way, and I I get on with it, and luckily it hasn't impacted my work a huge amount, so I can still work and I can still organize my social life and whatever. It's not as glorious as I'd like it to be, but it is what it is. But it's then when I introduce this into the mix and see what everyone else is up to, it just cripples me. Like, it makes me feel so crap.
It just makes you feel so like outside. So different.
Yes, I think that's a good way of describing it. I feel like I'm just not part of life anymore sometimes.
And for people like us that were social humans and would go out and know how to work a room, or like be this bubbly personality that people wanted to be with, it's strange to be like, that feels so foreign now. That was me. But you're right that when you're not looking at those highlight reels or comparing yourself to what could be, there's a lot of beauty in this life of kind of slowing down and finding new things that bring you joy. And my husband and I talk about it all the time, that it's this like forced funnel. It's like you go through a time warp almost. And it's similarly to like how people in their 50s post children and their kids have left the nest and everything. And like, man, this is a whole new chapter of life, but it's really beautiful. And you learn to appreciate things differently and whatnot. But you're so right that when even I still do this, like if I get on my phone and I look at and I have to say that my friend groups have deeply evolved since I've been sick, but I look at my old friend groups and I'll go, man, that is wild that they can still do that. Like, how are they doing that still?
I have the same thoughts. But I think you're definitely right. Like, like I said at the very beginning of this, I feel like I've had a bit of a personality transplant, and that's, I will say I've connected a lot with I know it sounds so cheesy, but I have connected a lot with my inner child. And I've been forced, because I feel like I had a personality that despite being very accomplished and like very high achieving and just going at things and very militant, I ran away from a lot of stuff. Like, I couldn't have a successful romantic relationship because I had so many issues. Like, I was shut down in arguments. I was hyper independent. It just wasn't, that's not conducive to a healthy relationship. And so I've had the time now because I've been forced to stop. I've had the time to reflect a lot, and I really got in touch with like my spiritual side, and kind of uncovering and picking apart these layers that I'd built on top of myself of who I thought I should be or I had to be, and uncovering why that was, and picking apart and uncovering who I really am. And I've started, pursuing hobbies that I did when I was a kid. Like, I've started gardening again, which
makes me so happy.
Yeah, like if you'd asked me in 2017 when I was kind of, I'd say at the pinnacle of my old self, I would have been like, I'm not. I was still very much a country girl, but I'd been like, that's such a waste of time. Like, why would I do that? Whereas,
why aren't we at the bar?
Well, or like, why am I not working? Why am I not at the gym? Why am I not doing something that's gonna like
traveling,
be productive and make me achieve something? I didn't really have any hobbies that I just did for fun. All my all the things that I did were to progress in life in some way. Whereas now I've kind of stripped all that back, and then just like, I like gardening because it gives me joy, and I love watching something grow, and I love connecting with nature, and I love doing all this, you know, being so present, and nothing else matters apart from just growing this little tomato from scratch, from a seed, and also connecting with horse riding.
The best
again.
feeling.
Yeah. You know, connecting with things that just brought me joy, just for the sake of bringing joy.
Yeah.
And
how foreign in this modern world.
Yeah, exactly. And also just, I think, really confronting my shadow self. And don't get me wrong, she raises her ugly head every now and then, but I think I have definitely, and I don't know if it's kind of associated with frontal lobe development.
Right.
4 years or so ago. But I've definitely become more self-aware for the better. Whereas I had certain behaviors and personality traits that I wasn't really aware of. It was just I just thought that's just who I am, and I never saw the issues in them. Whereas now I can better reflect on all of that stuff, and I owe it all to being sick, because it forced me to confront myself.
I love that you're hitting on that. I think that's the number one biggest silver lining out of being sick, is that all of a sudden you get stripped away of being your CV.
Yes, yeah.
Like what you've done and what you do for work.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's none of that really matters anymore. Who are you as a human? What do you care about? What brings you joy? What do you stand up for? What are you against? And you all of a sudden, like, really, like, you're right. You develop these things that as a child you knew through and through about yourself. And then you forget them as you get older because you're so focused on achieving. And now we get to kind of come full circle and get back to who we are.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful for that. But it is still a battle in my head every now and then, because I'm like, I get so into one of my hobbies or something, and then there's that little demon that raises her ugly head, like, this is such a waste of time, why are you doing this?
Yes.
And I'm like, shut up.
Shut up, bitch, get out of here.
But she does still pop her little head up, and I think that is just something I'll have to deal with and just put up with. But I think as long as stay in control of it, I think life, you kind of realize that things that you thought mattered in life don't actually matter.
Very much so. Do you find that that's been challenging with relationships? Because, like, you get forced to have this very compressed growth period almost, where you go into this now new version of yourself. But your friends and your peer set doesn't necessarily go through that because they don't have to yet. So how do you still, like, relate to these individuals in your lives and talk with them? Do you feel strange doing it sometimes?
I think some of my old friends that I had maybe weren't necessarily real friends anyway. I think they were just like, you know, like when you're in your early 20s, you're kind of
social
I was kind of, I was a social butterfly. I was kind of friends with everyone, and I loved that, and you know, I love people and I love getting to know people. But I feel like I feel like we just naturally distanced apart. Like, I think because I was so sick anyway, and I wasn't going out anymore, and so I kind of just dropped off the radar, and then those people just kind of stopped getting in touch, and that's fine. Like, it just wasn't, you know, they obviously weren't as deep relationships as I thought. Whereas I feel like the people that I would say are my true friends, they've just stuck around, and they've grown too, and I see it, and it's really interesting, and it makes me feel so proud of them, because I feel like, you know, a lot of my friends are super intelligent, and and they've all grown in their own ways, and so we've grown in different respects, and
Sure.
I do feel like the friends, like I said, that in my early 20s, whatever, they've just kind of disappeared off, and that's fine. But then my core group are there, and we have developed in parallel, but in different ways, and that's really beautiful.
Did all of your friends, your kind of now circle, how have they responded to you being sick? And do you feel like they understand it, or do you feel like there's kind of different personalities in the group that understand it to varying degrees?
Well, everyone's
and it doesn't have to just be friends; it can be family too.
Oh, well, family's a different story, but let's tackle friends first. Friends, I'd say, all my British ones especially, all very polite in the sense that they're kind of like very kind and wish me the best, but I don't think they actually fully understand it. They've definitely seen my downs, and they've definitely understand it in that respect. They know what kind of person I am / was. And if I say that I'm struggling and I'm struggling to get out of bed and I've got this crazy rash or whatever, then they know I'm not joking about, like something's wrong.
Right.
But I do feel in general, it's hard to expect people, no matter how close they are to you, to ever fully comprehend it. And it's sweet that they try, but there will always be, there will these moments that slip out and kind of highlight that someone doesn't fully get it. And it's when you say, when I say like, oh, I'm really tired, or like, you know, just I make these comments where I'm like, my body's really hurting, and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I'm exhausted too, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and like, yeah, okay, you don't, I get you're tired, and I respect that.
Different.
Yeah. And they try to relate, and that's really sweet, but it's not.
It's coming from a good place.
It's coming from a good place for sure, but it's not, I think they don't understand the tiredness.
As empathetic.
Yeah. But I mean, I can't criticize. Yeah. I've not had issues with my friends. It's my family that I've had problems with. And I grew up in a family where it was kind of like, if I'd broken my leg, right, let's say I'd broken my leg and my bone was sticking out, my dad would be like, yeah, you're fine, get on, yeah, or you're faking it or something, right? Like classic, like British, get on with it, stiff upper lip family. Yeah. I remember there was one time I was 9 years old. I was really young, 10, playing hockey. I got whacked in the forehead with a hockey stick, and a big lump, like not even kidding, like an egg came on my forehead. And everyone was like, you need to go to hospital, blah, blah. My mum just took me home, and that was it. Like, just put an ice pack on it. And I didn't think to get checked out by the hospital. Do you know what I mean? That's just to elaborate the kind of, just to give a background on my
dynamic.
Family. Yeah.
Helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
And so as a baby, I've always had like rashes and eczema, and that was from milk. I've always had an issue with milk ever since I was little. And
interesting.
My mum just kept feeding me milk, even though she knew that it is what triggered this horrible eczema in my body. And as a child, like, you just eat what you're given, right? You don't really have the have the independence to be the wherewithal. No, mummy, I'm not eating this. So
true.
So she
or like just putting it together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So there was this attitude of like, oh, you'll grow out of it, or this attitude of, oh, you'll develop the enzymes or whatever it is required to consume it. Safe to say, I never developed that, and to this day, I still can't consume it. So when I first started getting really sick, I think it was hard for my family to accept, because I've always been a person, like I've said before, who's very strong, independent, very militant, just get on with it. Like, and so suddenly I started slowing down and struggling, and, you know, I had this eating disorder as well, which was never fully addressed by my family. And like, there was always this kind of, I guess, disbelief.
Don't talk about it.
Kind of don't talk about it. This disbelief, this like not believing, that this kind of want to believe that I was faking, you know? And I don't fully get why, but that's how it felt. And, you know, like, for example, I was very clear. I was like, I cannot eat gluten or dairy. Please do not put that in food if you're cooking or whatever. And it'd always be, I remember there was like some beef stew or something my mum made, and she put this Worcestershire sauce in, which contains gluten. And I didn't find out until after I ate it. And I was just like, she's like, well, a little bit's not going to hurt. You know, it's best for you to keep eating it so that you can develop the resistance to it again. I'm like, that's not how it works. I've told you this. And
also, not your decision to tell me what I am going to eat or not eat.
Yes.
Ugh,
so I've had...
That's frustrating.
I've had problems with it, and like, I've just accepted that's just my, you know, my family are my family, and like, my mum's getting better for sure, but my dad, I think, he kind of makes little jokes every now and then about people with allergies. And I remember one time he was like, yeah, if I had a restaurant, you know, I'd put up a sign saying no one with allergies to come. And I was like, brilliant. Well, that's great, isn't it? Like, really understanding. And
do you think it comes out of a place where, like, they might have guilt that they know that they did not help you when you were little?
Well, even when I was an adult, but maybe deep down somewhere, I don't know. I think it also comes
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it also comes from a place of their upbringing and their attitude towards life. Like, I think it's a classic boomer mentality of like not accepting that the world changes, and the food that we're eating like today is not the same food that you ate when you were 5 years old.
100%. And so we don't have to live in the world where if you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. Like that's not true. And our generation, thank God, is like, no, we're going to talk about it because it does exist. Yeah. And we're going to get through it.
Yeah. And my dad is like the type of, he would never go to therapy, for example. Like, he doesn't believe in therapy. And so, like, you know,
they're very anti-therapy.
Yeah. And so, like, he grew up with a very strict father, and like he very much as a child just had to get on with it. And he's carried that mentality throughout his whole life. Yeah. And so he kind of probably saw himself in me a lot when I was at the pinnacle of who I used to be. And now in his eyes, I've probably really softened, and I've not as, you know, hard as I used to be. And he probably can't quite grasp it. And I think there's a bit of that if I'm looking into the psychology of it all. Yeah. But I think it's hard.
Do you find it hard to be compassionate with them about, like, accepting and holding that truth that, like, they grew up in a different way that has formed them to treat you and your chronic illness a certain way, and at the same time be frustrated and angry? Like, obviously there's got to be cognitive dissonance there. So, like, how do you continue to make space to be like, I still love you, we're still going to get through this, but like, this is hard?
Yeah, I think I think I have accepted it, but then every now and then I just explode. Something will happen and it will trigger me, and I'll just get really angry. And that's not, I'm not an angry person. And so often if that happens for me, it means that I've kind of suppressed a feeling down. And I think that suppression, what I've suppressed there is that feeling of frustration of like, why don't you care? Why don't you care about what I'm going through? Whereas now in my head, I've just told myself I've accepted that that's just the way it is. But actually I think deep down it really bothers me.
Of course, how could it not?
Yeah, right. Like,
do you guys talk about it, like, openly, of, hey, when you do X, it makes me feel Y? Or is that, I know that's not like a very British approach to talk about feelings like that. But is that something that you do, or not so much?
I've tried to in the past, and I just feel like it doesn't go anywhere, and I just
we have finite amount of energy.
Yeah, exactly. And like, pick your battles, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I do sometimes like open up with how hard how hard it is for me to deal with on an everyday basis, but they kind of don't know how to react, they don't know how to respond, so I'm just kind of faced with like a blank stare, or like oh, it'll get better, or it's something really, you know, like useless to hear. So I you know, I think family is family, and especially when it comes to your parents, like, you're never going to change them.
Very true. Very true.
It's just like learning to accept. You just have to accept. It's just another thing you have to learn to accept and just let go, because there's no point holding on. Like, you can never change someone. Like, you can't change people, no matter how hard you try. So instead of just holding on to that frustration and like another thing on top of all the other stuff you've got going on, like, just let it go. Like, it just... As long as you're clear, you know, express what's going on, how you feel, then that's all you can do. Yeah. And that's 100%. That's how I feel. So I'm just like, just let it go.
Release it.
Yeah.
I so agree. There's so many things that build, and I think it's a luxury for healthy people to let those things build and then just do nothing about it, or attack it. As someone who's chronically ill, like, we have finite amount of energy. Emotional stress fucks us up so bad.
Yeah.
We don't have that luxury to just continue on. We have to find the way to acceptance and almost forgiveness so that we can ourselves be okay physically, which is crazy. But it lets you live kind of a calmer relationship life.
Yeah. And I think I think you don't hold on to like toxic or unhealthy relationships anymore because you realize that you can't, and maybe that's a good thing. Yeah,
I think so. I think that's an okay thing.
Yeah.
So within your relationships then, do you find that like one of the common things that I hear when I'm interviewing people is like this concept of masking, of there's the sick version of us that can come out when we're with other sick people that's like honestly probably the most authentic version of ourselves. And then around other people, it's this mask of how sick they can see us, or like they're comfortable seeing us in. And I find like I do that a lot in my life with like my in-laws, because they don't like to talk about, like they don't even like to say the word cancer. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well then I'll be sick in a way that is digestible.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas for like my brother, for example, he had brain cancer growing up. Like we can take off all the masks and be like, go, like let's make fun of the symptoms together and have dark humor and like really lean into that together. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. But those are like very different, very polarizing masks to wear. And do you find that you do that too with relationships in your life?
I try not to talk about it full stop, because I don't like it to define me. Find that the more I talk about it, the more present it's in my conscience, and then I start hyperfixating on things. And I don't like bringing other people down. Like I really, really hate being a downer. And so that's another reason why often I'll just cancel on a social event, because I don't want to turn up being like half human. No matter how much social contact I actually would like to have, I don't want to like burden the other person with my bad energy. So I do isolate myself a lot. That. And I don't think that's very healthy. But
I do the same.
Yeah. And so
I do the same.
I think, it's probably comes from like the people pleasing element of our personalities, maybe. I definitely mask at work for sure. Like unless someone directly asks me about it because they've gone through something similar, or they're just, you know, then I'll open up. But otherwise I will not talk about it, because I'd never want it to interfere with my job. And in general, I find I do mask with myself. Is that a really messed up thing to say? I think I do like try and gaslight myself a lot into thinking that I'm actually okay.
Gaslighting or tricking ourselves. I
do that quite a bit, especially if I've got an event coming up, or I've got something where I need to be fully present, fully energetic, fully on. Then I start developing that mask when I'm alone. And I'm like, right, let's do this.
Putting on the hype music.
Like trying to like just get in the zone, I guess. And that's really sad that I have to do that.
It is, but it's also like what a good skill to be able to do, because I think the older we get, the more situations we can chameleon ourselves into. And that I found actually has ripple effects that are surprisingly positive.
It makes me laugh though, because I'll be out like at a social occasion or something, right? And I'll be masking. Then I'll get home, and the first thing I'll do, I'll just lie down. Like, I just get there immediately and just lie down. I'm just like, I don't want to do anything for the next like day. Sometimes I need a day to recover from stuff, which I never needed before.
No, the battery recharging is very real. Very, very real. And if you don't do it, then your body chooses for you later.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career, because you have been very public with your chronic illness on social media. Has that impacted your career? And when you did go public with your story, did you what were the thoughts going through your head?
Yeah, I was hyper worried that potential employers or clients might see it and be like, oh, that's a high risk, let's not book her. But honestly, I've not had, not that anyone's told me, at least. I'm sure maybe there's been some occasions which I'll never ever know or find out about, where they've just been like, okay, no, we can't risk that, the project's too long, and what if this happens, and then it's a waste of money, blah blah. I've actually had the experience where I've had people that I've worked with talk to me about it and be like, oh my god, I saw this video you posted where you spoke about this, and I have the same thing, or I'm going through something similar and I didn't understand it. And then and they start opening up, and you'd be surprised. Well, I'm sure sorry, not you would be surprised, but people in general would be surprised how many people keep these things to themselves and keep it a secret because they either don't understand it or they're worried that if they say it, it's going to make themselves look vulnerable.
Yes.
So, but people feel safe
The
to open up to me about it. The stat is
1 in 3.
shockingly high.
Shockingly high. 1 in 3 people have a chronic illness. 1 in 10 have an autoimmune disease. It's like, why do we feel the need to hide this part of our lives when, if you're sitting in a restaurant, that's a ton of people in that restaurant that are also sick. It doesn't matter.
No. And so I've just been like, you know what, like this is part of who I am now. And when I was going through it all at the very beginning, I felt extremely alone. I didn't know anyone else who was battling it. I felt so isolated. The medical industry didn't really give me any comfort, and there was no one that I could just turn to and just seek some, even if it's not just advice, even if it's just comfort to know that you're not alone. I think just having that camaraderie, exactly, just to see someone else going through it and you'd be like, okay, well, they're doing it, so I'll be okay. Or like, oh wow, she has that rash too, wow, I've never seen anyone with that. There's something quite warming about seeing someone else going through what you're going through, especially in times where you have no answers. So I was like, you know what, I felt really alone, and I don't want anyone else to feel alone, and I have this platform and I'm just posting just stuff that's literally no good to anyone, like, oh brilliant, another selfie of me. I'm like, well, let me just post some stuff that actually gives someone some benefit from seeing it. And some of it's silly and some of it's quite deep or sad, but I just thought that was more important than worrying about looking vulnerable online. And I actually haven't, to be honest, I'm really good now at controlling my symptoms, and I know I'm quite familiar with it all now, so I'm 99% aware of what will cause a flare-up, or if I overexert myself, then I know that I'll have to give myself some rest. And so before any job or before any big event, I'll know to not overexert myself. I'll know to be really super extra strict about what I'm eating. I'll know to get myself in the right headspace for it. Yeah. So touch wood, as yet, I've not had it where I've had to cancel a job because I've just felt not up to it. I don't want to jinx it because I don't want to
knock on wood right now.
Knock on touching my desk. Yeah.
Yes, everything.
And because I love what I do, it kind of helps bring back that spark inside me again. Which when I'm doing like mundane tasks, it's not really there.
But maybe that's good. It makes us do what we actually love the most.
Yeah, it brings back a bit of life inside of me again, I think.
That absolutely makes sense. Well, I'm, for one, very, very grateful that you have shared your story so intimately online. I think for a lot of people that are in that undiagnosed bucket, or I have a diagnosis, but I just don't, there's something in my gut that's telling me this is not it. This is not the end of the road for me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people view your content and they can see there's still hope. Look at Alex. She's still cruising forward. She still finds joy and positivity. And you share that you have depression moments or heavy, sad moments or anger and frustration, but you're still also sharing y'all, there is still normal good life in our lives.
Yeah.
There's still a normal life to be had. And I think that that's beautiful that you've been able to articulate it in that way. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. You've motivated me to do some more posts.
Amazing. Good. There we go. There's the hole in the mask. We're just going to keep going. I love it. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how your life has changed and it's impacted your mental health and whatnot. So the way I love ending these shows is talking about 3 roses and 3 thorns. So that would be 3 beautiful, interesting, unexpected things that have come out of being sick, and then 3 things that have been more challenging that you are facing right now.
Okay, I like that. I'll start with the thorns because I want to end on a positive. So I'd say my 3 thorns are mourning my previous self. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really hard concept for a lot of people to grasp who haven't been in this situation. But I know that a lot of people who are dealing with chronic health problems will completely relate to that, where you're just grieving this person who you used to be and who you've kind of had to say goodbye to, but you're still holding on to because you hope. There's a part of that. I think there's always a part of you that hopes that you can get her back or get him back.
Yeah, totally.
So that's massive thorn. A second
I'm
thorn,
right there with you, sister.
Yeah. A second thorn is, I think, I don't know if you've had this, but for me, sacrificing a bit of a social life. I don't have the social life like I used to have. Like I said before, I used to be out all the time, and you know, I just had so much energy to expend that I could bounce from one thing to another and not think twice about it. Whereas now I cancel a lot, and I don't plan things because I'm worried that I'm not going to feel well enough to do it, or I also just don't make the time as much as I used to because I prefer to rest and I prefer to be alone to recharge from stuff.
I mean, can you imagine doing more than 2 activities in one day or 3 activities in one day? That would just be far too much. Far too much.
I've got it in me somewhere.
We'll celebrate the one.
I've got it in me somewhere, but...
Yes, you do.
I couldn't do it on consecutive days. No way.
No
way. So yeah, sacrificing a bit of a social life for sure. And my final thorn, I'd say, is... I guess just the exhaustion, just the simple exhaustion of constantly fighting every single day. There's the physical exhaustion, which we're all too familiar with, and that's really, really horrible to handle every day. Mm-hmm. And then the physical exhaustion then turns into mental exhaustion because you've got to kind of cajole yourself into action, and you've got to constantly motivate yourself to get up and go do things, and get up and go wash your hair, brush your teeth. It's sometimes even as basic as that. Like, so there are some nights where I really cannot even bring myself to brush my teeth because I'm just so tired. Same. And I'm like, whereas like that's not normal for me.
Hell no.
No, that's not normal for me. So I think just pure exhaustion. I hate being tired more than anything in this world. I really, really hate it. Like, it's the most debilitating symptom, I think. Because when you're so tired, you can't do anything. It just makes life a bit pointless. No. And I know that's a horrible thing to say.
You can push through pain. You can push through nausea sometimes. You can push through some of those other symptoms. But fatigue, that rolls you out.
Yeah, and at its worst, my fatigue, it feels like my body is just shutting down. It feels like I'm dying. Like that's how awful it is. So I'd say those are my 3 thorns.
Those are very valid 3 thorns that I think so many people can relate to. They suck so bad. They're the worst fucking thorns.
I hate this plant.
We're ripping it out. We're doing a whole new garden next year.
But simultaneously, there are the roses, and there are some really lovely things that have come out of it, which I touched on earlier. And one of the main ones being I had to stop and reflect and actually hypothetically look at myself in the mirror and pick apart the layers that I've built up on top of myself and get back in touch with who I actually am. And maybe I'm not there quite yet, but I've definitely dug a lot deeper than where I was at the surface when I first started. And this ties on then to number 2. I've definitely got better relationships now with people because I know myself better, and I would say I'm a nicer person. I think it's given me a shit ton more empathy. And I'd never really... I was empathetic, but I wasn't really that. I was like, I'll just get on with it. I'll just get over it.
Yes.
Like, when someone would say to me, oh, I'm gluten-free, I'd be like, I'm gluten-free. It's so pathetic. Whereas now, I'm like, holy shit, that's so difficult. Like I just have a more, like just a nicer understanding on the world and people and like hardship.
I think it's easier to put ourselves in other people's shoes now. Like,
yes.
You have these experiences where you can relate to so many other people's struggles at a different degree, where it just makes you kind of like forgive anybody's upset behavior or whatever is going on in their day, and just know like they just need love because they inevitably have some roadblock in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made me realize like that person who I thought was being an arsehole who barged me on the train, okay, let's stop and actually think, why did they, I wanted to like snap back and have a go at them, but actually let's think, why were they being an arsehole? You know, you kind of, you maybe give excuses to people a lot more than I would have done before.
Yes. And who knows if that's a good thing or not, but I like it.
Yeah, I think it stops you jumping to conclusions and stops you seeing the worst in people, which I think is a really unhealthy habit to have. Like people who just always just see the worst and think everyone's being a dick when actually they're not. They've just maybe had a really bad day, or maybe their grandma just died, or like, you know, there's always reasons for it. And my third rose, I would say, is I think I have a healthier outlook on life. I do still struggle. The demons do rise up every now and then, but as a whole, I think when I was younger, I mean, when everyone's younger, you kind of think things are important, which actually aren't. But I've definitely grown out of a lot of things which I thought were important, which I'm not that bothered about. Like, for example, don't get me wrong, I still like nice clothes and I like nice stuff, but I used to think having designer stuff was such an important thing and like such a, you know, it made your social status so much higher. And now I'm just like,
oh, Alex, we are cut from the same cloth. That was me as well.
I didn't realize I still have some nice designer things, and I'm not going to give them up anytime soon. But
hell no.
I went to look at an Yves Saint Laurent bag, and it was like $2,500. And I thought, this is literally the most basic leather bag I've ever seen in my life, just with some stupid logo on it. Why am I? This is ridiculous. I don't need this, and I just don't. I don't care about it as much anymore.
No, I think you start to focus on, I don't know, more meaningful things maybe.
Yes, and you know, I care more about home now. I never ever I never liked being home before. I wanted to live abroad so badly. Like, it's another exemplification of I was just running away all the time, and I didn't see it as running away. I just thought it was me being, I want to conquer the world kind of attitude. But actually, I was just running away from a lot of different emotional issues that I'd never confronted. And now, because I've been forced to confront those things and I've had the time to sit with myself and work through a lot of stuff, I now love being home. Like, I'm a huge homebody, and I see the value in that, and I see the value in
nesting
and like the little things. I think you know, we put too much emphasis on things that actually don't matter, but actually, you know, it really is just the little things. Like, it is just waking up in the morning, looking outside and seeing a really pretty flower in the garden, or it is just having a cat like make a little noise to you and brush against your leg, and it is just, you know, coming home and the fire's on and you've got your partner there to like hug, and it doesn't matter if you're wearing like Yves Saint Laurent handbag and Jimmy Choo boots. That's not going to change how those little things make you feel. Like, if anything, I don't know. I feel like I'm maybe not explaining myself that well, but
no, I hear you. I think it's like, it's easy to get distracted in today's world with a bunch of things that seem flashy or exciting because probably because of social media. It's like this highlight of the next. But when you are stripped away of chasing the next and you no longer can, you have to focus on the right now. You start looking around the right now and you're like, damn, this is actually beautiful. And like, here's the gratitude that's in it, and how filling that is for a full life. Wow. Like that, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, I think it's that we've been forced to slow down, and like when you slow down, you can actually appreciate things that once you never even stop to consider or look at. Like, I remember walking down the street once and looking around, being like, in my hometown, funnily enough, my hometown that I grew up in. And I was just like, oh, I want to get out of here. Like everyone does, right? Like, oh, like it's so shit. Oh, it's so boring. There's nothing, blah, 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 blah. And actually, it's really pretty. And I was like looking around, like, wow, this is so lovely. Wow, how lovely people are, and blah, blah, blah. You know, and I started to like appreciate these things that I once took massively for granted.
Yes.
I think that's another key point. I don't take things for granted like I used. I really took things for granted. I took my health for granted. That being the major
Everyone
one.
does. Everyone does until you can't.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, it's really easy to focus on the bad things with chronic illness and autoimmune and health problems, but actually, there's a lot of good that can come out of it. You just have to try and look for it, and have to just sit with yourself and think, okay, what is it now that has changed in my life that is different to before, and how is that a good thing, and how can I make this a good thing? And I think that's actually quite a good, I've kind of slandered myself quite a lot in this, but actually I think one good trait of myself is I do see the silver lining in a lot of things, and I think that
I can tell you can.
Thanks. And I think having that attitude has helped a lot. But I think it's really important, because when life feels a bit pointless, and when life feels like, oh, I'm just in bed all the time, to be able to kind of tune into, let's actually just think, what is good about right now? What can I actually be grateful for, and what can I actually learn from this situation? That's when it starts giving life meaning again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that doesn't come immediately by any means. You and I are a few years into this journey.
No.
And there is very much a real grief process that occurs where you're like in denial, and then anger and depression. I'm probably butchering the order of this, but you go through those phases. But ultimately, like, I hope people listening to this can see us and know, like, obviously we still struggle. We just both admitted, like, we've been in some depressive seasons recently and still are. That said, we've moved through some of this, and like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And as long as you can hold that truth that like there is a form of light at the end of the tunnel, it just is going to look different than the light you've seen before. That will get you through.
100%.
You will be okay.
And get a cat.
Get a damn cat.
Get a cat.
Or a dog that acts like a cat.
Yeah. Get a dog that doesn't like being active, but get a cat.
Exactly.
Like, just when you have I call them duvet days. When I have a duvet day and there's a little fluffy, cute, purry thing that I can just like snuggle a bit and like, and they sit on you and they purr. And, oh, it makes life worth living.
Okay, I'm so glad that you called them duvet days. My sister-in-law, my brother married a Brit, and she taught me about duvet days.
Oh, no way.
I just put out a holiday episode where I was explaining them and like how to really lean in and like optimize them during the holidays to recharge.
Love that. They're the best.
Such a fan. Oh my God. Life-changing to have a duvet day.
And I think once you kind of tell yourself, okay, let's just enjoy this duvet day because I can't do anything else, it does make it a lot more of an enjoyable experience. Rather than just being angry and frustrated that you're stuck in this prison, what it feels like.
Yes.
Just
or
like,
being guilty that you're not being productive. Like, fuck that. Throw that right out the window and like allow yourself to indulge, because we're adults. We never get these windows. And when we do and we need them, take them.
Yeah, exactly. Then duvet day just sounds cute as well. So it's like duvet day.
It sounds so cute. And then it's an excuse to have a very cute bed too.
Yeah, exactly. I've definitely splurged on bed sheets.
Hell yeah.
Because of the sweating as well. So I was like, I have to get linen or 100% cotton because I need breathable materials.
Very breathable.
No polyester.
No, ma'am. Get that the fuck out of here. Well, Alex, this has been such a treat to get to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your story and just doing the work that you do for our community. You are an angel.
Thank you. Like, it's so great that you're doing this and you're talking about it and you're like highlighting people's stories. It's really awesome to see.
Thank you.
And you like I said to you when we had our Zoom call not too long ago, I was like, well, if it's any consolation, you don't look sync. It's lip sync. Because you've so much bright energy around you. So, and that's,
thank you.
You know, I don't know.
Likewise, I feel it right through. Right, feel the Zoom. You can feel people's energy always. And that, like, it doesn't matter if we look sick or look bad. You can feel the energy. And we've got some good energy on this call.
Yeah, you're glowing.
Likewise. All right. And on that note, y'all, take our glow and go and have a lovely day. Much love. Mwah, mwah,
Thank
mwah.
you. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with a friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue. I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.